Hello, happy Friday, everyone. Woohoo! I'm so excited. Welcome to my first IG Live, and I couldn't be more happier to have this amazing topic, which is human design. And I'm just waiting for my guest, yay, which is gonna be here in a second. About human design and how you can use this amazing tool in your career and business. Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Really well, thank you.
Oh, so
Excited
excited.
to excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm really, I was looking forward to it whole week. Especially that I shared with you my chart. But first things first, would you mind to briefly introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, of course. And if you're watching, say hi and
Yeah.
say where you're joining from. We would love to hear. Yes, so yeah, my business is K&B Coaching. I set up my business back in 2015 and I love working in the field of human design, but also I was a mindset coach for a long time. I do a lot of work around boundaries. That's why my handle on Instagram is Boundaries Queen, and really just helping predominantly business owners to thrive, but thrive in life as well, right? Like to feel kind of at home in your own skin and know who you are and be who you are. And so whether that's in your business, in your career, in your relationships, in the relationship that you have with yourself, like just really, yeah, finding a way to do what's most natural to you and most aligned. And so, yeah, lots of different bits and pieces, but yeah, I love it.
Thank you so much. And it's all connected, and I think like there's so many things I would love to ask you right now. But like today, I would love to focus on human design. So,
Yes.
if you don't mind to share, what is human design?
Yes. Human design is a tool that is based on our date of birth, our city of birth, and our precise time of birth. And what that gives us is a chart, if you like. And so with the chart, we can look at what that tells us about ourselves. It gives us information about how we use our energy the best, how we can best communicate, how we can attract the best opportunities, how we can make decisions that take us in the right path, down the right path, which is such a helpful one. Personally, I can say I've done made many business decisions that sort of weren't going down the right path, and it was kind of all this trial and error. Yeah, so it really just helps to let us know who we are, but in a way that I haven't found that other tools sort of show us. And so it's a way that we can understand ourselves in a practical way and kind of immediately start to implement some of the um, learnings that we get from human design. It doesn't change over the course of our life. It doesn't matter, how conditioned we are or how, what's happening at the time or anything like that. It doesn't change with our age or our environment or anything. It stays the same. And so what I love about it is it kind of is like this North Star to point us back to what's most us. If we're going off track or we're getting stuck or anything like that, it's a way to kind of get back to our purpose and what's most natural for us. And so that's what I find so helpful. Yeah.
And how come like I don't know how to word it. Like either you found human design or human design found you.
That's such a good question. I think it's really common for people to kind of maybe hear about human design and not necessarily get right into it to start with. And that was my experience. So I heard about it sort of years ago and I was like, oh, that's nice, but it just didn't really spark anything within me. And then it was, maybe I think about 3 years ago that I started to just keep hearing it pop up and pop up and pop up. And from different coaches that I'd worked with, and I thought, oh, this is interesting. Let me have a look at this. And then I started to learn more and listen to lots of different things. And then it just kind of hooked me. And I was in, I was kind of right down the rabbit hole. It's a very intricate rabbit hole. But I could just, what I loved about it personally is that it kind of provided the framework for everything that I was already doing. And it was a way to kind of fast track where people wanted to go, because it was a way to help them to realize what was most natural for them and what was going to work for them. And so, yeah, that's what I picked up on. I used it for myself first, and things just started to make so much sense. I started to learn that, I have to be really passionate and really lit up about something that I'm working on or that I'm offering, which kind of sounds obvious, but it's also, as a business owner, really possible to get up in your own head and do what you think you should do or what your next offer should be, or, to second guess these amazing ideas that maybe you have. So I experimented, which is what we say with human design. It's a lifelong experiment, and it's a great thing to kind of just play around with and test out if someone's curious as they're watching. And then, yeah, thought, and I hadn't really been planning to bring it into my business, but then I just thought, this is too good to not do that. This is just gold to me, and it's not for everyone, and I totally get that. But I think, if you're curious, you don't have to take my word for it. You can try it out for yourself and sort of see what you notice and what you find when you do that.
I had a very similar story to, I mean, I'm not a human design coach, but I think the first time I heard about human design was like 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Kind of similar timeline. And I was like, okay, which type I am. We're gonna go into that in a second. But then I think up until last year, when I really digged into it, I was like, okay, what is it? What does it mean that I am like projector? And I did like a one-on-one reading, and I feel like, yeah, during this reading, I was like, oh my God, that makes so much sense. Like so many things, like when it comes to the decision, or when it comes like, how do I want to feel in my business? Like what motivates me? So yeah, that was a very aha moment for me, 100%. That was amazing. I really love it. And since then I'm like, okay, reading, everything, we're seeing the signs.
Yeah.
Taking someone else, like, okay, so just to make sure that I understand also my clients, or even like my family, my partner,
Yeah.
everyone like, what's in that? Yeah, it's so funny.
Yeah, and I think, yeah, it's just so typically people want to understand themselves better. And I think usually the information that we get, it doesn't seem like this radical thing that you're like, oh my goodness, I'm so shocked. It makes
Yeah,
so much sense, but it's framed in a way that you've probably never really consciously realized before. And so, yeah, I was the same. I was like, it helped me to understand myself, but also, my teenagers better and my husband, and, just all these personal benefits that came from understanding them better, as well as, of course, in a work sense. So, yeah.
it is. So how does it work then? We've got all the details. We like the place we were born in, the date, obviously things, the hour, and then what? Like we get a chart, and what kind of information is there? Like if you could tell us a bit more. Like I know it's hard, like to fit everything
It's
in an
not an
hour, but like human design for
intuitive
beginners.
chart, I'll say that.
Human design for beginners. So how does it work?
Yeah. So, yeah, you can look up the chart and you'll get this weird looking um, chart with, lots of information around the sides and numbers and symbols and that sort of thing. And so the first piece to really focus on is, what is your type? So this is the very first piece of human design. Is it okay if we dive into the
Yes,
types? Would that be
please,
helpful?
please.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so if you didn't do anything else but kind of just understand your type, that would be super beneficial for anyone that's watching this back. So there's 5 different types, and I'll just sort of list what they are, and then if you'd like me to go into more about what each one. So generators are the most common. They're about 36% of the population. So I'm a generator, and generators have the capacity to kind of use their energy to kind of go to build things out, to master particular things. I call them the energizer bunnies. Like, as long
I
as they're doing
love it.
things that that feel satisfying or that light them up and feel exciting, they kind of get regenerating that energy, and they're sort of fueling that and can continue to go and go and go. And yeah, so I started to dive into them. So the types are generator, manifesting generators are 32%, projectors are about 22%, manifestors about 9%, and reflectors are 1%.
Okay, so you already started explaining
I know,
generators.
sorry,
Uh,
I got carried
no,
away.
it's good. Like that's the idea, right? So just to make sure, like okay, we get the chart, and there are 5 types. So yeah, if you could tell us a bit more about each. I know it's not possible to know everything, but yeah, just the overview would be awesome as you did with generators.
Yeah, for sure. And so generators are here to respond to things that are outside of them, and we're responding all day long. So things like, just noticing what sparks your gut. And that can be a tricky thing to understand. I was like, what do you mean trusting my gut? Like, I don't really understand what that is, but it's really just noticing what you feel drawn towards, or what sparks that little fire or piece of excitement or something like that. Which might be, you're listening to a podcast and it sparks an idea, or you feel like going to a particular restaurant for dinner, and that's just something you get excited about, or catching up with a friend or something like that. So being able to follow that excitement, follow what feels overall satisfying, because everything doesn't feel exciting all of the time. And so just being mindful of the things that are draining your energy. So if satisfaction is kind of the signpost that we're on the right track, frustration is the signpost that we're not. And so I always say, even though they're kind of the energizer bunnies, everyone can get depleted and everyone needs to recharge. And so, it's totally possible for a generator to burn out if they don't have really great boundaries around what they're saying yes and no to. If they are just taking on so much because they physically can do all this work, or, get things done, but it's not actually giving them that sense of satisfaction, it can become depleting for them. And that's where they're actually sort of pouring from an empty cup and getting more and more tired. And everyone around them can kind of feel that as well. When you're around a generator that is not energized, it sort of can be felt by others. And so that can be a really nice permission piece for a generator to remember that, me looking after me and taking good care of my energy is actually a gift, not only to me, but to everyone around me. And that's just, if we're in that people pleaser mode or overworking or anything like that, it's just a really nice one to remember.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I think after my friend, like me and my friends, we did the human design charts for each other, and we started to understand those dynamics as well, and how each of us act in a way, and what's important. So for the generators, you would say it's important to say no if they don't feel it, or they don't feel satisfaction from it.
Yeah. So if they're not feeling like they are lit up to do something or excited about it, or that it's going to bring them satisfaction. So sometimes it's not exciting in the moment because you're working on a really big task or project or offer or whatever it is. And it's not, it might feel really big and overwhelming, but you know that by the time you've got that done, it's going to feel really satisfying. That's a sign that you're on the right track. But if you're saying yes to a lot of things that you haven't really got the energy for, or that don't give you those feelings of satisfaction and excitement, and instead they're draining you and depleting you and ending up you're feeling frustrated, that's the sign that potentially, if that's coming up consistently, it might be just a really good way to think, okay, where have I gone off track here? What can I do about this? What can I shift? And so, I know that we're talking today more about from a kind of business or work perspective, like if you did a little stock take of what is within your work day and what you're focused on, how much of those things feel satisfying, and how many of them feel frustrating, and just, is there anything that you can do to shift those frustrating ones? And also remember to do things outside of work that bring you kind of joy and satisfaction as well. So it doesn't have to just be all work, work, work. By just kind of getting out and doing something that you love, you become more magnetic to other people and you'll be attracting opportunities and so forth.
Wow, so interesting. So we've got those questions. So if any generator in here, just rewatch it later on as well. And then the second type, which
So then we've got
percentages?
manifesting generators.
Okay.
So they're about 32% of the population. And again, have a lot of energy to go, go, go. Manifesting generators tend to be multi passionate. They've got lots of things that they love to do, lots of things on the go. I love to think about Brene Brown as a great example of a manifesting generator because, you know, she was a social worker and then, you know, she's been a uh, she's done a TED talk and she's done podcasts and written a gazillion books and all, you know, she's got so many things that she loves to do. It's not like she's like, I am this. So manifesting generators are here to have lots of different passions. They might have kind of gone down one path with work and then changed to something different. And then they feel like that's not really giving them joy anymore and they move on to something else. So they're not meant to kind of just follow this one path that maybe is more typical of what a generator does. Often these people have been told to niche down and to just focus on doing one thing in a business particularly, and that cannot feel good to a manifesting generator when they like to have lots of different things on the go. And so, yeah, just giving themselves permission. Again, they have the same signpost of following their satisfaction as a generator does, but also this secondary theme of peace for the manifesting generator. So, what feels satisfying, exciting, all of those things, and feels kind of expansive for them rather than them being put into a little box that they have to stay in. Uh, yeah. Does that make sense?
That makes sense, 100%. And anything else? So what is, because you mentioned for the generators, the frustration is the opposite of the satisfaction. And how about the manifesting generators?
Yeah, the frustration as well, and with like a secondary theme of anger. So just being mindful of what's coming up consistently. And manifesting generators often find that something has kind of come to a natural end, like they're offering something within their business and maybe it's going really great, or maybe it's a particular arm of their business or a whole business. Like sometimes manifesting generators have multiple businesses, of course. So just like, what is it time to let go and move on from that doesn't have the same excitement or satisfaction that it previously did? For manifesting generators, they often work super fast. They can just see where things need to go and they can just make it happen really quickly. And it's really important for them to remember that not everyone can work as quickly as them. And to just have some support, because sometimes because they're going so fast, they can miss steps. So it can be really helpful to just have, you know, if it's in business, to have like some admin support or whatever it is to help make sure that they are ticking those boxes and free to work at their pace, doing what they do best.
Oh, I'm jealous about the energy level though.
Yeah.
Okay, but those are manifesting generators. And what is the third type
And then
then?
your type. So then the projectors, yes. So you can let me know what you think about this one. So projectors are approximately 22% of the population. And projectors tend to be, they have this wisdom to them. They have this big picture view. They can see how things can be done more efficiently, more effectively. They can kind of take that bird's eye perspective and see what needs to happen. They often find themselves being advisors or coaches or some kind of guide. Of course, anyone can do anything, so they can be in any job or any role, but that's just some common ones that tend to come up. They often really love those one-to-one settings to have that depth of conversation. And projectors are, this one and the next two are, they don't have the same kind of consistent energy that the generators and manifesting generators can tap into if they're following their satisfaction. So projectors have energy that kind of ebbs and flows, it comes and goes, and it's not sort of on all the time.
Constant.
So yeah. And so it's really important for projectors to be around people that feel like they really appreciate the wisdom that you've got to share and the insights that you've got, that you feel appreciated and valued for what you share. And that, yeah, sometimes things like words of affirmation can feel really good to a projector, just to feel, just feel appreciated and seen for all that all that you have to offer. Uh, yeah, projectors, I think, sometimes can go astray if they're trying to keep up with everyone else. Like, given that almost 70% of the population are these generators and manifesting generators that can go, 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 do, projectors and some of the other types can find themselves burnt out or really depleted if they're just trying to prove that they can keep up or feel like they're not doing enough if they're not going all the time. But actually, when they allow themselves more rest, usually they actually have a kind of a better output. Like, they can get something done faster in the end, or by not pushing through, they'll be able to share in a different way or whatever it is. So I think for projectors, it's really important to learn that rest piece and give themselves permission to have that.
Oh my God, that's so true. And that was one of the things that came out during my one-on-one reading. I would love to chat about the one-on-one readings afterwards as well. But I remember we started with this. It was a question, or just like even if the person that was doing the reading to me a year ago, she was like, "Okay, I don't know projector that who is like older than 30 and who never experienced burnout." And I was like, guilty. I experienced like burnout twice, and that was this, trying to, just be go 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 and just cope with everything and take way too much work on me that I actually was capable of. Yeah, and I just realized it afterwards. I just realized like whenever I had a big project or like things going on, I was sick afterwards, or I was just like, I was laughing always like my battery is done. It's like black screen, nothing. You just need to like charge.
It's gone.
Yeah. So that was it.
Yeah, and I think that's why just even knowing your type, which as I said is like just the very first piece of human design, can just give you so much information about, oh, okay, this is how I'm meant to use my energy. And I know the work that or the podcast and things is about, like finding your spark. You can't have a spark if you're really depleted, if you're burnt out, if you're exhausted all the time. Like, it's just, I would say it's pretty impossible to have that spark. Do you think?
Oh, 100%, and then because you mentioned for the generators and money generators, that the opposite of the satisfaction is frustration, or when it comes to money gen, also frustration and anger. How about projectors, and what if we don't align with what we really need?
Yes. So the signpost that you're on the right track is success for a projector. And success doesn't need to mean like it, that material sense that we necessarily think about it, as it definitely can be, but also it might be, working in a way that just honors the ebbs and flows of your energy, or, not having back-to-back meetings all the time, or not trying to be as productive as others, or being around people that really deeply see and appreciate and recognize you for what you can offer. And the sign that it's called the not self, when you're potentially not on the right track, if this keeps showing up again and again, is bitterness. So like that resentment, that sense that maybe you're sharing all this wisdom and it's not being appreciated, or you're around people that don't really truly see who you are, and it's sort of a one-way street. That kind of thing, when you're feeling really depleted and worn out and heading for burnout again, that kind of thing.
Yeah, that was the other aha moment for me during my reading, when I was like, oh my God. So if anyone that is listening is a projector, I feel you. And then even the knowledge of that I think it helped me to realize then what kind of people I want to be surrounded with or by, or like with who I do want to like interact in both personal and professional life as well. So
Yeah.
the thing of being seen, I think, that and appreciated was wow, that was a huge one too, and I feel it was also the feeling of I just felt like, oh my god, yes, this is me. I feel that way, and not feeling guilty about that. That was the shift that I was like, oh my god, yes, that's me. Like someone actually, because I felt this frustration and like bitterness, and I was like, what is it? Like, why is that?
Yeah.
And it was the words like, no, because they don't get me, because they don't get me. And then when I had everything, I was like, oh my god, that's why. So it was very, very important realization for me then. Yeah.
Yeah, and so being really careful about, who you're spending time around, and if it feels like a reciprocal arrangement and you feel like, that feels like success to you as well, like the quality of your relationships. And where the generators and manifesting generators are kind of noticing that gut response and responding to what's around them, the projectors are waiting to be invited. And that doesn't mean, for all of those that we've talked about so far, it doesn't mean not taking any action or sitting at home and watching Netflix and hoping that an opportunity will knock on your door or a client's waiting, or, it just means uh, being visible in your community, or like what you're doing here. This is perfect. Like, people get to know you, they get to see you, the right people will want to be around you. Maybe then someone asks to work with you, and that's the invitation. So it's showing up and sharing and doing your thing. But you can't really be invited if people don't know you're there, or if you're a really well kept secret. So, and that can be tricky for a projector sometimes. I know that, well, for anyone, but that can really trigger these feelings of, oh, that's a bit scary to be seen, and so forth. But I guess that's the challenge, to kind of work towards that, so that those invitations can come in, because people want to work with you, or they've got an opportunity that you can consider, or that sort of thing. But by curating the network that you're around and who you're sharing with and how you're showing up and all those sorts of things, that will naturally come.
Yeah, that's another part that I think lots of projectors struggle with. But before we dive deeper into like all of the details, maybe of each type, as much as we can do cover within this hour. So we've got those three. What is the next
Yes.
one? The
So
fourth type.
the next one is manifestors. Manifestors are only 9% of the population. And so often a manifestor and reflectors are the next one, which are only 1% of the population. They're not as common, right? They're much more rare. And so I think the temptation can be to feel like you have to be like other people as well, because there's just not very many. You potentially don't know other people that are manifestors or reflectors as well. So manifestors are the initiators, the disruptors, the innovators. They are here to create new ways of doing things, or new things, full stop. The creator of human design was a manifestor, so creating this new system, this new tool that hadn't been seen before. And so that can sometimes be really big things, and sometimes it can just be tweaking a particular system or process or something like that, just seeing a new way of doing something that could be done differently, so that it's improved, it's better. So manifestors are naturally kind of meant to be bold and brave, and to notice the creative urges that are coming up from within them, so they're the only one that doesn't have to wait for anything sort of external. They are noticing that creative urge coming up, and they are meant to take action on that and initiate. And then they as well have the energy that is there, like this powerful energy to make this new thing happen, and then really meant to lean into rest as well after that, because that's when their next creative urge will come, when they're well rested. As opposed to, it can be really tempting, of course, to push through and then find that there's nothing really coming up, and that would be sort of out of alignment for a manifestor, because that's their gift, to initiate and bring new things to the world.
Mm.
Yeah.
And what happens if they don't follow this path? So what's the opposite feeling then?
Yeah, so anger can show up for a manifester if they are, not in alignment, not following what's most natural to them. So, that can just might feel a bit prickly, to be around the manifester who's in that sort of position.
Mm.
Manifestors are also sometimes trying to people please and trying to keep everyone happy, and really it's just this is the case for all of us, but I think particularly for a manifestor, the right people will want to be in their orbit, and those who aren't a good fit won't, and that's okay. And it's those people that are meant for you, the ones that really resonate. So that's important as well.
Mm. And then what kind, because you mentioned in the other types as well, like kind of the questions that they should ask themselves if they feel like, this, negative, in a way, feelings coming up. So what questions manifestors should ask themselves?
I think really good questions for a manifestor are things like, how much freedom or autonomy do I feel like I have? Do I feel really independent? And, someone that's being micromanaged will, for a manifester, that would be an awful experience. Like nobody likes it, I would say in general, but, to a manifester that will not feel great, or being kind of, told to do things all the time. A manifestor is kind of meant to have a certain level of autonomy and, able to take carriage of a project or that sort of thing, but also know when it's time to hand that off to someone else to see it through. Sometimes the challenge for a manifestor is, they've kind of birthed this new thing, so to speak, and then it's their baby. They want to kind of hold on to it, but actually then that can start to deplete them as well. So knowing when it's time to hand off. So yeah, just like where do I feel like am I following my creative urges? Like, am I taking action, or am I overthinking it and second guessing it? What's their relationship with rest? Are they giving themselves permission to rest, which is, to be honest, a challenge for all the types, but I guess, super important for the projectors, manifestors, and reflectors. And also informing is a really important part for a manifestor, like where they initiate, and then they're meant to keep other people, relevant people, up to date with what they're working on or what they're doing. So if they're kind of going out of contact to kind of hunker down and build this thing out, just letting other people know who will be impacted by that, what they're doing and what they're working on, and vice versa. So sometimes friction arises with the manifestor where they're not doing that informing piece, where they're not keeping people up to date. And it's not about asking permission or telling everyone, but just the relevant people. And that will really help to smooth sort of communication channels as well. So, yeah, does that answer your question?
Yeah, they are 100%. So those are the things that they can take into consideration. And then last but not least, reflectors.
Reflectors, yes. So only 1% of the population. So it's always, amazing if you happen to have a reflector in your
Reflector.
midst. So yeah, reflectors do exactly what it sounds like. They can kind of mirror things back to people. They can notice what could be improved or done differently or changed. In a work setting, they're called the evaluators. So they can sort of evaluate where things are at and give really pertinent kind of, different insights than maybe anyone else is noticing. They just have this capacity to be able to see this nuance and ways of doing things differently. Reflectors, if anyone's looking up their chart, there's 9 different centers on the human design chart, and reflectors have none of those shaded. And what that means is that they're taking in and amplifying the energy from everyone around them. And so, that's part of their gifts, but also that can be kind of exhausting to be taking on energy, whether that's emotionally or taking on fears or taking on stress and anxiety and these kind of things from those around them. So for reflectors, it's really important to be really mindful of being around people that feel healthy and good to them. because they're going to amplify the energy of who they're around. So if they're in a really toxic work environment, it's going to feel really bad to a reflector because they're absorbing and magnifying that energy. And also spaces are important. So kind of carefully curating the spaces that you hang out in, whether that's your work off, like your home office, or a workspace, or a favorite room in the home. Those sorts of things can be really helpful, or letting the reflector choose the restaurant because they love the vibe of, the certain feel of a place. So yeah, reflectors kind of have this more chameleon kind of personality where they might feel more like a generator one day, or more like, have different sort of aspects of their personality that can get pulled out over time. And so just giving themselves permission to show up in a way that just feels authentic for them, depending on the day, and to give themselves time to make decisions over a longer period of time when they're bigger decisions. So reflectors are meant to make decisions over the course of a lunar month, which is around 28 days, rather than sort of rushing into decisions and then realizing that actually they didn't mean to say yes to that,
Because
which we
they
can all
because
do.
they like they change over like each day they
Yeah,
feel differently.
yeah. So what might be a yes today, next week or tomorrow or in 3 weeks might not be. And so having that time, although it requires patience, enables them to just take on a different perspective over the course of the month. And so, as I said, it's not for every decision, but for those bigger decisions, it really means that by the time they make the decision, they're just really convicted with it. They know, they feel sort of, sure that that's the right thing because they've given it time.
That's an interesting type, indeed.
Yeah,
Do
so
you meet lots of
interesting.
reflectors on during your work? Do you
What's that? Sorry.
meet lots of reflectors?
No. I actually have no. Yeah. I have in a group setting, but not one on one. So yeah, that's quite common because they are much more rare. Yeah, and so for a reflector, their signpost that they're on the right track is surprise, which I kind of think of as surprise and delight. And I guess that can be, like, how do I feel like showing up today, or what feels like me today, or how do I want to express myself today? Those sort of things. And then disappointment is the not self theme. So where they might feel like they're heading, down the wrong path for them, if that's coming up consistently. And I guess that can come back to it's really important for them to spend time alone to kind of shed that energy of other people and come back to who they are themselves. So disappointment can kind of show up where they're feeling really exhausted, not spending time in spaces that feel good or around people that feel good, not allowing themselves to sort of express themselves differently, or not being invited to share their reflections. That can just sort of lead to that disappointment as well. Yeah.
So that's it. Wow, that was a very quite. I mean, I know it's hard to kind of give an overview because each type is so different and there's so many, I feel like, details and also characteristic to each person as well, because the type is a one thing, but then as you said, like when we generate our chart, so there is like this kind of body and then those 9 centers, and what kind of like, why I would say, like, what else we can know from reading the chart and why it's so beneficial to do like a one-on-one reading, so to make sure that the type is one thing, but then all those little details that influence
Yes.
yourself are important to know as well.
Yes. And just so you know, although it seems like we've just talked about type, we've also included like how to know when you're on the right track,
Yeah.
off track, and then also what's the best way to attract opportunities or to generate opportunities, which is called your strategy. So we've covered a
Yeah.
few more as well. But the inner authority is a really important piece because that's the best way for us to make decisions. And there's 7 different inner authorities. So if you look up your chart, it will say inner authority, and it'll have a name to it. And yeah, it's really important to know that we all make decisions differently. And funnily enough, none of them are from working it out up in our head. I know your favorite one is around intuition and, but really trusting your intuition, and that's your inner
That,
authority.
yeah.
Yeah, which is called splenic, coming from the spleen. And so just knowing that means that you can take notice of that, intuitive whisper, nudge, whatever it feels like for you when you allow yourself time to get quieter and still and things like that. And so you get that intuitive hit. I have something called a sacral or trust my gut inner authority. And I know we're getting into a bit of jargon here, but really it it's what it says, trust your gut. It's your gut knowing, it's what you've got the excitement or spark for. And then we've got one that's called emotional or wait for clarity, which is around giving yourself time to sleep on a decision rather than giving an automatic yes or no. Frequently people with this type of inner authority rush into saying yes in the heat of the moment because they're excited about it or someone else is excited about it. And so they're like, yeah, let's do it. And then they walk away, or the next day they're like, actually, I really don't want to do that. Well,
Yeah.
why did I say yes? um, and then yeah, there's more than that as well, but I think inner authority is a really helpful piece, especially like just in general, but especially as a business owner, because you're making decisions all the time, and ideally you want to kind of go down the path that is taking you towards, your vision and what's going to feel really fulfilling for you and all of that sort of thing. And although, of course, there's a trial and error element and test and measure element to business, like you kind of want to minimize the amount of times that you kind of U-turn or
100%.
go back
Yeah.
or change your mind. So I think just understanding the way that we all make decisions that are most natural for us can really help to speed up the process of getting to where you want to go. Yeah, rather than being analytical, second guessing our decisions, overthinking it, all of these things that we all do.
Or as you say, like saying yes, and then next day, or like even within an hour or two, you're like, oh my God, why would I do that? So yeah, the knowledge of that, I feel, yeah, that was a big one to me as well. So yeah, for me, it's like intuition, and sometimes it's the same. Sometimes it's like, you know what, I just need a moment, even though I know, someone asks me something, and I'm like, okay, how do I feel about it? So sometimes I need them maybe a day just to literally like just be on my own and feel it. But sometimes it's just like in this very moment, I know like doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's about trusting those
Yeah.
instincts without knowing why necessarily. Sometimes we don't know how it's all going to pan out, or we haven't got all the evidence of what's going to happen, but it's like trusting that intuition that you've got to know that that's not going to steer you down the wrong
Yeah.
path.
And
Yeah.
even work for me in business, like, because if I'm coaching someone or doing the consultancy, and I started to ask my clients, so like to check it, or like which type they are, and I'm not an expert, so I always like send them to like, or you or some,
Yeah.
or if they feel it like to dig deeper into their own chart. But I remember that really influenced my cooperation with one of my clients, because yeah, I'm this kind of person, like I feel it, okay, that's the
Yeah.
direction, this is what we should do. And then when I learned that she needs some time, that she needs to sleep on the decision, she's manifesting generator, but also like she needs some time to make a decision. It's not like on spot. She needs to see all those different details and parts and like sleep on it. Then it changed the dynamic of the cooperation as well,
Yeah.
because I was
That's right.
yeah, so I was like, okay, this is how she works, and this is how I need to accommodate her needs as well, rather than like trying to understand it only from my point of view. Obviously, as a coach, I know that's important, and I always try to do that. But like the knowledge of that really helped me to be more in peace with that, if you know what I mean. Because as a projector,
Yes.
I feel sometimes that I'm like, this is the way.
Yeah.
But like I also learned to be like, okay, wait, like if someone will feel like this is the right moment, then they're gonna come back for this advice. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think what happens then is they just feel really secure in the decision that they're making.
Yeah.
They trust it, and then they trust themselves, and so they're learning for all of these inner authorities or decision making styles. you're learning to trust it and learning to therefore trust yourself to make the decisions that are right for you. And so that's how you can start to shut out the noise from other people, because typically people will tell you to do it the way that they do it without even knowing. They'll tell you to trust your gut, or they'll tell you to, I don't know, like take some time and sleep on it. But when you are having these client conversations, and especially if you've got someone who is potentially thinking about working with you, or signing on for something, it's just a really ethical way of relating to them. Because for me, if I know their human design, I'll say, I don't want you to make a decision today. Give yourself 24, 48 hours and then come back to me when you know. And then they don't second guess it. They feel confident that they're making a decision that's right for them, and they don't feel pushed or hurried to make a decision, which can end up not feeling good.
Yeah, for both. So it's amazing because it can work. It can help you in your business career, but also in a way like for your own use, but also to understand better the people you work with, or you
Yeah.
work with. Yeah.
And so for me, having a trust my gut authority, and I live with 3 manifesting generators who are all meant to wait for clarity. I learned that they're not going to make a decision on the spot, when I'm asking them about it. And so I was able to give them time, tell my kids to sleep on it, like my son when he was doing subject choices for going into year 11. It's like, well, just like, okay, this is what you think you want. Why don't you just take a day or two to think about it? And then sure enough, he'd say, yeah, actually, I'm going to keep those, but I'm going to change these. And then he never thought about it again. He was just happy with what he'd chosen. So I think those kind of things are just priceless. It's just, and in a team setting,
Mm.
imagine knowing how everyone makes the best decisions and how they best use their energy, and how, all of these different ways that we interact with each other. It can just give so much more harmony and high performance to a team, because they understand each other and they're not expecting other people to be the same as them. They appreciate the differences and know that they are their gifts, really. And so it can really just smooth out any tensions and that sort of thing.
Oh, that's so beneficial, and to like both team members, team leader, manager, right? Just to also know the dynamic and what motivates each team member. Yeah, I think that's priceless
It's
too.
huge.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I love, doing team workshops as well, when everyone's just like, oh, that's why you do that. That drives me mad. But now I get it.
Yeah, now we can
Um,
accept that and kind of like come from the position of okay, I do understand we different. And
yeah. Oh,
sometimes
that's
you
your
need that.
human design. No wonder you do it like that. Yeah. It's
Mm.
that sort of vibe, instead of like, can't you just hurry up and get it done already?
Yeah,
Or, you
make a
know,
decision now.
why are you thinking about this so long? It's just a yes, isn't it? So, yeah.
Mm. So we touched on quite a lot, I feel like, but for me what was the most important, I think, was the one-on-one reading that I got. So if you got someone asking about like why they should jump on a call with you to do like a personalized like reading, I mean the reading of your chart, actually the
Yeah.
chart is yours, and so that's something that is that is unique in a way. So what else we can learn then doing the one-on-one reading of your chart?
Yeah. I think it's so helpful to do the reading, because you're then looking at the whole chart.
Mm.
So sometimes people try and piece it all together themselves, which is fine, and it gives you a good overview if that's all that you want. But if you're really wanting to work out how it all pieces together, because there is so much more to it than even just what we've talked about today. Someone might say, well, I'm a generator, but I feel like a projector. And that might be because you've got particular strengths that have a projector energy, or, different things. So it's being able to look at the whole thing and know in the context of what that person is doing. So they have the opportunity to put in any questions they've got, or a focus for the session. So it can be a generalized session, or it can be on something in particular related to their business or their career, or they're wanting to change career. I get quite a bit of those. So yeah, you can set your focus, and then we can talk about that and work out what your chart kind of informs us in relation to that. So it's sort of seeing the whole picture. rather than just zoning in on one particular area of it. Because, I'm sure you know other projectors and you'll all be very different.
Yeah.
Sure, you share the theme around energy, but you've all got a different, you've got different strengths and you've got different business or different work and all of these sorts of things. And so what's on your particular chart will be different to someone else's. And the same as me, there's so many generators around, but we're all different. That's just the very first piece. So it just helps to get a lot more nuance and some really practical tips and suggestions that you can walk away with and put into practice straight away.
Okay, so I'm happy to do a little test if you want, because I shared with you my
Yeah.
chart because you asked me to. So I'm happy to share some details
Oh, fun.
about myself, because yes, I'm projectors playing, so like intuition is the
Yes.
way I am making decision with, and any other tips I can confirm or not.
Yeah. So one other piece is your profile. So this can kind of be like your brand character or your like the way that people perceive you, the way that you can align with your purpose. And you've got what's called a 5-1 profile. So everyone has two numbers. If you look up your chart, it'll just say profile and it'll have like a fraction. So I'm a 1-3, you're a 5-1. And so the 5 is like a really natural, innovative problem solver, can see how to do so many things differently, better, improve them. I think the suggestion for you is to just not try to solve all of the problems that you can see and to really like notice which ones you feel like you would like to focus on, like the problems that you would like to solve. You have sort of natural leadership tendencies, sort of here to have a really big impact on the world. And so, yeah, I think just embracing how you do things differently. It might not be how everyone else is doing things. And just even by the nature of the work that I know that you do, with, bringing intuition to kind of a business focus, that's not so mainstream, right? So it's like embracing the way that you do things. And the one line is about being an authority, diving deep, learning all you can about something. So I've got this line as well with the 1-3. And so it's really showing up as the authority in your business, sharing from that place, waiting until you've got a really solid foundation before you share, giving yourself time to really dive deep and learn all you want to about something. And then, yeah, sharing about it with your audience or clients or whatever it is. Do they resonate with you?
Very much.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, especially the problem solving one, but digging deep into the subject as well. Yeah, I'm very much, if I'm doing something that I'm like, like all in, and 100% the feeling of like need to know before I share. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's a big
Yeah,
one.
don't
So,
throw you something last minute and
yeah,
expect
yeah,
you to be able to fly.
yeah.
And just the other thing with the 5, is just that people can sometimes project onto you and think that they know who you are and what you're all about. I always say Taylor Swift has the same profile, a 5-1, and so I think she's a good example of someone that people project onto a lot. Everyone's got an opinion about Taylor Swift, whether they love her or hate her. So it's like, what
Especially in
feels,
Australia, I feel like.
what's that?
Especially in Australia, I feel like it's,
Oh,
yeah,
okay, yeah,
huge.
yeah,
She's huge
yes.
here. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like what feels most like me. And
Mm.
boundaries are super important with a 5 line because people will just naturally expect certain things of you. And so if you're really clear with like, this is what is included in my package or my program, or, this is for someone that's working on maybe projects, this is the amount of revisions that we can do, or this is how you can communicate with me, or all of these things, so that there's not scope creep or people coming back to you and trying to ask for more and more and more. Just being really explicit with expectations from the get-go can be really helpful.
Mm. You see, and those are those little details that during the one-on-one reading you get, right? And then you're like, oh my God, yes, I struggle with X, Y, Z. Or
Yeah.
like you can just like reflect on the cooperations in a business you had so far, and then like, oh, so that's important. Oh, that's
Yeah.
why happened. So that's, yeah,
Um,
it's amazing tool. It's really, yeah.
Yeah. And one of the other things that's really, well, there's a couple of other things, but the centers, so the actual shapes that are on the chart are really helpful. So the shaded ones are like our natural strengths, that we can consistently tap into. And the white ones are where we're kind of taking in energy from others and where we've usually gained the most wisdom and learned kind of insights around how to manage these centers. So for you, um, one of them is the ego center, which is all around our willpower, our motivation, that these things can kind of ebb and flow as well, but also those sort of that feeling of being good enough, or that self-esteem and self-worth piece. And I have this as well, so I don't know if that resonates with you,
It
but I
does.
know that's been a
How do
theme
you
for
manage?
me. So just even knowing that is really helpful, right?
Yeah.
To go, okay, if that's coming up, that's not my truth. That's just coming from my human design, and I'm still worthy, and I'm still enough. And I don't have to prove anything. If we're finding ourselves trying to prove things, that can just be really helpful. Um, and that you've got a really empathic nature. You can take in the emotions of other people as well, and so having time by yourself is really helpful to just shed that and work out what's yours and come back to your own sort of calm nature.
And
And
that's
then you've got
so big. I need to share that. The
uh
other day, I was sitting with my partner. We were doing something, and like working, I think, together. And I just felt all this emotion in me. And I was like, "You're right." I was like, is everything okay? He's like, no, I just got like a very weird email. And I was like, I literally felt all this emotion. And he's like, you're so weird. I'm like, you're witch. I know he didn't say weird. He's like, witch. I was like, no, but literally, I just started to feel it and that then brought me back to my one-on-one reading, when I learned that about myself, that it's easy for me to read the room, and to make sure like what is mine, what is someone
yeah,
else. I
yes,
know it's a bit woo-woo, but it's really, yeah, for me, the knowledge of that event, that this is not mine, and just trying to think, hey, what's going on? Is it mine? Or, and then also the tip that I got that was super helpful. So if someone feel that same way, if I wake up and I work from home and I feel like very, so sometimes it's just like taking my laptop and going to the cafe
yeah,
and surround myself with different people. It's also like kind of giving me this different energy.
yeah,
So yeah, so that was a big one to me as well, like with this, it's called emotional
yeah,
center, right?
yes,
Yeah. So
yeah,
and just to understand that I absorb those emotions of others.
yeah. And
Yeah.
what you touched on was actually you've got a collaborative definition, which means also called split. So that means that sometimes you might feel like you kind of got that stuck energy if you're home by
Mm.
yourself, and getting out and being around others, which I'll do as well. I have the same definition, can just be really helpful. It kind of connects up your electromagnetic circuitry. So you kind of, yeah, you find some more flow. Like if I'm working on a blog post or a newsletter or something like that, I can just go and work somewhere, and I don't have to talk to anyone, but it just flows, and it just shifts that energy. So that's really helpful as well.
Mm.
Um, but just if you don't know that, you don't know to do that,
Yes, you just like feel, and you just try to do something at home all day, and and it's not working, and it's just the easiest solution. Just take your laptop and go somewhere
Yes,
else. Yeah.
yeah. And you've also got the undefined head center. So one of the very top center is white as well, and so that can be, just getting inspiration from everywhere, like having so many ideas and potentially feeling scattered. If more in that sort of shadow expression of it, I get this. We've got quite a few similarities in this one. Yeah, so just knowing that, like maybe even just writing down what your focus is for the day, or focusing on things that are going to feel like success by the end of the day, can just be a really nice way of bringing focus as well, and not getting kind of caught up and, jumping from one shiny thing to the next, or getting really distracted. It'll just help you to focus.
Mm,
Have you
perfect.
found that one?
Thank you. Yeah, yeah. When I mean, 100%. My head is always full of ideas, both for me and then as well for clients. I learned to say like, listen, I've got lots of ideas. I can, give you many different scenarios. So let's do it that way that we're just gonna like have it recorded. We're just gonna chat about it. And then you can sit on that like tomorrow or the day after, listen again and feel what's works
Yeah,
with you or not. Yeah, because yeah, I mean, oh yeah, throughout my both personal and professional life, always I've been always like a problem solver,
yeah,
ideas, action, do this, do, there's a problem, I know, flight cancel, what we do, how we can go, all this.
yeah,
Yeah, so it's always
yeah,
super easy. I used to work in events at some point ages ago, so that was always the part when I was striving too, because it's changing and there's always something coming up. I mean, same in sales, that you need to be very reactive. So that's nice.
yeah.
But it's good to know. Sometimes it's good to just to hear someone else like naming it. Like just defining, and then you're like, oh yeah, that's me.
Yeah. And then you go, oh, okay, it's really normal for me to have all these ideas, but I don't have to do anything with all of them. I
Yeah,
can work out, I can trust my intuition to know which ones I want to follow, or help my clients to know what their best decision making strategy is
yeah.
for them, rather than, just thinking that they need to take on everything that you say
Mm.
as well. Yeah.
Yeah. So then coming back to business and career, how we can use human design in our business, like we already mentioned like decision making, or like even like our energy, our flow, but is there what would be the best way? Would be like the one-on-one reading, or like a couple of sessions, or how you can work with that tool actually to implement this to your business?
Yeah. So there's a few different ways, and it kind of depends on what someone's after. Sometimes people they just want to understand themselves, have a one-off session, gain those insights like we were talking about, and then they can go away and experiment with that and put it into practice and see what they notice. Sometimes people will do that, then they'll come back for another session when they're ready. Sometimes people know that they want to really dive into more, and they want to have one-on-one coaching together, and that is a way that we can create that vision of what they want, help them to set those really effective boundaries that all the different types of human design still need, and then be aligned, like learn how to align with your human design and get kind of insights and guidance around how to do that. People that have been people pleasing for a long time, or overworking, or a lot of these conditioning things that come from those white centers on our chart and from other areas, it can just be a really good way to learn how to let go of those and free yourself up and empower yourself to know how to align with your human design. So sometimes you could do a one-off session, but you know that you would need more than that. So that's another option. And then I do team workshops as well, for people that really want to bring it into the workplace. And usually people have done a one-off session first so that they kind of understand themselves and they can see how it would apply in the workplace, and then they're like, oh my god, I need this for my team. So probably, the one-off session is a good place to start and go from there, and yeah, find out more.
Perfect.